Have you ever said something in English and immediately wished you could take it back? Maybe it was one tiny grammar mistake, a small word, a wrong tense, but it echoed in your head all day. If that's you, my friend, welcome. You're not alone. Hi, and welcome back to English Leap Podcast, where every word becomes a step toward confidence. Today, we're not just learning grammar, we're learning how to transform mistakes into mastery. Because behind every grammar error lies a story, a moment where your courage spoke louder than your fear. In this episode, I'll guide you through 5 common grammar mistakes that English learners around the world make, and how to finally stop them. But I won't teach you like a textbook. Instead, I'll tell you stories. Stories that show how words shape connection, identity, and growth. So, as you listen, don't just focus on grammar. Listen for rhythm, for emotion, for new vocabulary that appears naturally, like small treasures hidden in the story. Because language isn't just about correctness, it's about connection. And remember this line, keep it in your heart as you listen. Progress isn't about being perfect. It's about daring to keep learning even after you fall. Before we dive in, I'd love to know, where are you listening from? And what time is it right now in your country? Drop your answer in the comments, because our English journey connects people from every corner of the world. Now, let's begin. Our story starts in a small cafe in Seoul. Rain was falling softly outside. A young man named Leo sat across from his interviewer, trying to stay calm. He had studied English for years. He'd memorized grammar rules, practiced speaking in front of the mirror, even watched hours of English podcasts. But when the interviewer smiled and asked, "So Leo, tell me about yourself," his confidence cracked. He said, "I am working here since 5 years." The interviewer's eyebrows lifted. Leo froze. He realized it. The tense was wrong. He wanted to say, "I have been working here for 5 years." That small mistake felt like a mountain. Later that night, Leo sat by his window, watching the city lights blur in the rain. He whispered to himself, "Why did I say that?" But then he remembered something his teacher once said, "Mistakes don't mean failure. They mean you're in the middle of learning." That night, he wrote a list, not of regrets, but of grammar habits to change. At the top of his list, stop mixing past and present tenses. He practiced sentences like, "I have lived here for 3 years. I lived there when I was younger," over and over until his mind stopped hesitating. By the next week, when he spoke again, his words flowed smoother. The difference wasn't just grammar, it was confidence. So let's begin with the first mistake many learners make, using the wrong tense when talking about time. Like Leo's sentence, "I am working here since 5 years." The right way is, "I have been working here for 5 years." This tense, the present perfect continuous, connects the past and the present. It says, "I started then, and I'm still doing it now." That's not just grammar, that's a timeline of your life. Think of your own story. How long have you been learning English? Try saying it now, quietly. "I have been learning English for." Fill in your number. Each word is proof that you've been growing. As Leo closed his notebook that night, he smiled. Outside, the rain had stopped. The world looked cleaner, like his thoughts. He whispered softly, "One mistake at a time. I'm becoming fluent." The window glowed with the reflection of a rising sun, the color of hope. A few weeks after his rainy night of reflection, Leo found himself teaching English to younger students in his neighborhood. He wasn't a native speaker, but he had heart, and he wanted to share what he'd learned. One afternoon, he asked his students a simple question: "What did you do yesterday?" A girl raised her hand and said, "I didn't went to school." Leo smiled kindly. He knew that mistake. He used to make it too. That's grammar mistake number 2, using the wrong form of the verb after didn't. He said softly, "When you use didn't, the verb after it must be the base form. So instead of I didn't went, say I didn't go." The girl nodded, whispering the correction to herself. "I didn't go. I didn't go." Leo remembered how his own teacher once explained it. "Did already shows the past," she had said. So you don't need to add another past form. But beyond grammar, Leo saw something else: courage. That little girl dared to speak, even when she made a mistake. And that's what learning really means: not being perfect, but being brave enough to try again. That night, as Leo walked home, he passed by an old bookstore. In the window was a small notebook with golden edges. On the cover were 3 simple words: "Say it right." He went inside and bought it. That notebook became his secret tool, a place to write every new word, every corrected sentence, every aha moment. He called it his confidence journal. Inside, the first page read, "Mistake #3, forgetting to add mists for he, she, it." He smiled. How many times had he said, "She go to work every day," instead of, "She goes to work every day"? It seemed like such a small detail, one little letter, say. But in English, small things matter. A missing seg can change the rhythm of your speech. It's not just grammar, it's music. Leo practiced aloud as he walked. She goes. He plays. It rains. Each repetition felt like a heartbeat, calm, steady, confident. Then he thought of another moment, years ago, when he'd been laughed at for that very mistake. He'd been in a group chat with foreign friends. Someone asked, "What does your sister do?" And Leo had replied, "She work in a bank." There was silence. Then someone corrected him gently. "Ah, you mean she works." He'd felt embarrassed then, but now, as he looked back, he realized something powerful. That correction was not rejection, it was guidance. Every wrong word had been a signpost leading him to clarity. The moon rose above the city, as Leo sat on his balcony, notebook in hand. He whispered, "She goes." He plays. It rains. His voice was soft but steady, the rhythm of growth. He realized that language, like life, is full of tiny adjustments. Every missed say, every tense, every correction, it's like tuning a musical instrument. You don't get it perfect in one day. You listen, you adjust, you keep going. Leo took a deep breath and wrote a line in his notebook. Fluency isn't about never making mistakes, it's about never stopping the conversation. Somewhere far away, a bus passed by, carrying tired students and dreamers. And maybe one of them was whispering English sentences too: brave, imperfect, beautiful. He smiled and thought of how many learners around the world share this same journey. Different languages, different struggles, but the same dream: to speak freely, to be understood, to connect. He turned the page of his notebook, ready to list the next mistake. The night was quiet, but his mind was awake, alive, reaching for more. He looked up at the stars and whispered, "Tomorrow I'll fix the next one." And somewhere deep inside, he knew that next one wasn't just about grammar. It was about every limitation he'd ever believed in. The city lights blurred into constellations, like tiny sparks of new beginnings. The next morning, Leo woke with a sense of purpose. He opened his confidence journal and turned to the next page. Mistake hash 4. Confusing much and many. It seemed small, almost invisible. Yet for learners, it's a trap. He remembered sitting in a cafe last year, trying to order coffee in English. "I want much sugar," he said confidently. The barista tilted her head, smiled politely, and corrected him. "You mean many if you're counting, or much if it's uncountable?" At first, he laughed nervously, feeling a little embarrassed, but then he realized these tiny corrections were windows into the logic of the language, and each one sharpened his awareness. Leo began teaching his students this distinction using real-life examples. How many books do you have? How much water do you drink every day? He noticed the sparkle in their eyes when they finally understood. Language wasn't just rules on a page, it was tools for precision, clarity, and connection. He smiled to himself, thinking about all the times he had misunderstood someone because of a tiny word. It was humbling and motivating. By afternoon, Leo found himself wandering along a quiet riverside path, notebook in hand. The sun reflected on the water, creating golden streaks that danced with the breeze. Here, in this tranquil moment, he reflected on mistake hash 5, misplacing adjectives. He remembered a conversation with a friend. "She has a beautiful, very dress." His friend had laughed gently and corrected him. "She has a very beautiful dress." It seemed small, almost poetic in its subtlety. Yet the order of words could completely change the rhythm, the emphasis, the meaning. Leo realized that learning English was not just about being correct, it was about making your words sing. He practiced aloud, letting the adjectives flow naturally. A tall old tree, a bright red flower, a kind young teacher. Each sentence was a mini story, a brushstroke in the painting of daily life. That evening, Leo sat on his balcony again, city lights twinkling below like scattered fireflies. He thought of the last few weeks, the rainy night, the small cafe, the bookstore, the river path. Every mistake he had made, every correction he had received, every repetition he had spoken aloud, they weren't failures, they were milestones. He whispered to himself, softly but firmly, "I don't need to fear mistakes, they guide me to mastery." He closed his notebook and looked at the moon, rising high, casting a silver glow over the rooftops. A deep calm settled in his chest. He realized that grammar wasn't just about English. It was about patience, persistence, and believing in growth. Leo imagined his students, and all the learners around the world, making their own mistakes, whispering their own sentences, learning one small truth at a time. He felt connected to them, even across oceans and time zones. And now, he wanted to share one last lesson, the most important one of all. Mistakes are not the enemy. Fear is. Every time you speak imperfectly, every time you stumble, every time you hesitate, you are learning. You are living the language. He thought of the first mistake he ever made in English, a simple tense error, and smiled. Look how far he had come. And so, as night wrapped the city in quiet shadows, Leo whispered a final thought to himself, and to every learner listening: keep speaking, keep trying, keep growing. One word, one sentence, one story at a time. If you followed Leo's journey today, I hope you can see something beyond grammar. Notice the new words and phrases you heard: confidence, reflection, courage, milestones, milestone. Notice how stories carry meaning, and how mistakes are part of life, part of learning. Now it's your turn. Where are you listening from tonight? What mistake will you face tomorrow with courage? Share it in the comments. Let's connect across time zones, across continents, through the language we love. And if this story inspired you, if you felt your confidence grow even a little as you listened, don't forget to subscribe. More stories, more mistakes, more lessons are waiting, each one a small step toward fluency, toward connection, toward your best English self. Leo looked at the city one last time. The lights shimmered like hope. The air felt alive, and he smiled, knowing that every learner, everywhere carries that same spark, the spark of persistence, courage, and growth. Because fluency is more than grammar, it's about heart, curiosity, and the willingness to continue the journey.